All right. It's what, Friday the 29th? We had a skip week. So I'm Doug, and this is who are all of you? This is Office Flash Friday. Uh, what? Yeah, I'm in Minneapolis. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, there you go. Um, all right. So if you haven't watched the show, we dig in, curate the news, and then sometimes like take challenges from the audience and tackle stuff and all that jazz. Today is more of I got a couple of things on lists, some JSON customization. I'm nerding out on lists and list formatting and visualizations, which is sort of near and dear to my heart for a project I'm doing internally for my new team. A little bit of dabbling on security, and then the announcement of Work Lab. So probably a shorter still audience of mine, but one real, I think the list one's worth carving open. What do you got, Sweet? Awesome. Well, I'm on screen at the moment, so I guess I'll start. We didn't really pick who
Right
was
on.
going to go first, but I think since I'm up,
I assumed it was you. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good assumption. I just recently was having so we as open broadcaster to do the show, and we just realized we were having all this jitter and stuff. And it was related to if I used a mouse wheel as opposed to a trackpad, and I really got to demystify why that is so at some point in my life. Probably
If everyone could see like the 10 minutes before we go live, they would like find it
it's just sometimes
wonderfully
like
hilarious.
this, like you have all this stuff running, and we produce this entire show. I do all my content, everything off of a singular machine, right?
We are on a like low budget.
Yeah, yeah.
It's low,
So fair, fair,
meaning
fair,
no
fair,
budget.
fair. So
Yeah.
all right. Anyway, so there's an interesting stat post around the state of apps by Microsoft Identity, Azure App Gallery app that made the most impact in 2020. So that was interesting just to go through and say, hey, what kind of Azure AD App Gallery use? So basically, as people went remote, you and I have been preaching. Um, like you should integrate all your application estate into a singular security canvas. Here's all the reasons why that's a great idea. Blah blah blah. Well, so look at like the top 15 apps by monthly users.
This is very. I've never seen this data. This is very interesting. So Zoom. I mean,
I had never
one, I'm
either.
surprised Zoom wasn't higher. I guess, but the fact that it
Well,
came out
I
of
mean, it makes
nowhere.
sense. 2020, right?
Yeah. And
And by the way, these are the non-Microsoft apps, just so we're
well,
absolutely clear.
fair. Well, look at like Workplace from
So,
Facebook coming up. That's interesting.
because us putting our apps on would be cheating. We're like, well, we're the top users of our own identity repo, so
Yeah.
don't think we're not in the top 15. These are the top
Yeah.
15
That would be.
third-party applications. I
This
just wanted to like let a
It's very interesting
Microsoft
to
isn't top
see
in their
the
own. No,
ones
no,
that
no,
are
no, no, no.
there's some that are falling and some that have like shown up from nowhere. That's interesting.
Right?
I'm surprised Blackboard
Do you,
learned
do you know?
well.
Yeah, it went down,
Yeah.
right? And maybe it's because Brightspace rose or whatever it is. You can see like the different demographics of the industry in here. At EDU, rising and pushing on
Sure.
top of that. I think it's interesting that
Well,
collaboration and service
the
rose,
the one where I'm not
right?
falling over a surprise is number 6 and 19 fell to number 14 in 2020. Concur, right? Because travel. Uh,
Yeah.
so that makes sense.
Did you notice like WebEx fell off the map,
Oh, wow. Okay, that's interesting.
right? And so I think it's interesting to see who rose, who fell.
Zoom came from nowhere to
You
number
know,
4.
hey, look, Concur travel went down. I wonder why.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
exactly.
that's snarky. Not a lot of travel going on this year. And Zscaler coming on the map, of course, for remote access. Anyway, interesting, right? What
Yeah.
people do.
Well,
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that like the transparency of the aggregate amount of volume is interesting data to share.
and I'm assuming this means this relates to just number of logins,
Yeah, active
volume,
use,
relative.
session use by real
Yeah,
humans in a given monthly basis. Yep.
cool.
All right. Anyway,
Neat.
I thought it was kind of cool data to share on top of it. We also
It
released
is.
this entire estate of things called Work Lab, which is a digital publication dedicated to the future of work. It's a whole bunch of curated assets around, um, like going remote, well-being, bringing us together, meeting culture, frontline workers, how to focus in the always-on economy, work trend index. Like the whole brain science we did around like bad video
Yeah.
conferencing UI and the amount of mental fatigue it puts on. It's a soft it's the humanities behind the
I
technology.
mean,
Does
like
that
when you
make
say
sense?
modern
Like,
work, like that should mean something more than apps, right?
yeah, and it shouldn't mean that you're now you have no separation. You have no, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
it means more than that. So we've always said like the fusion of like software and hardware and the rich experiences you can build centered around humanity is the goal. And this brings the human side back into it, in my opinion, from a content and an analysis perspective. So I don't
Cool.
think it's something you should ignore. I think you should read it. At least explore a few of the domains. It's like listening to a podcast you don't on a domain that's not related to your world, like just to broaden your mind, right?
Yep.
And this is tangential to a lot of scope. And I think even people who are in maybe other areas, if you're in data or whatever it is, still think there's a lot of gems in there that are worth doing on
Well, not
top
only
of.
that,
Okay,
but like every one of us is working in the modern world. So, I mean,
yeah,
this affects all of us 100%.
I'm hyper envy that you have a hub 2 at your house.
Oh, yeah, you should be because it's quite wonderful.
Those things are just brilliant. I thought I was just like, I mean,
I
it's
use it
the price of a
daily.
small car, but I almost go, it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
So
It makes me sad because I wish every person, especially like every teacher, I wish I could
oh
give mine to a
yeah,
teacher
right.
who's doing remote
So
work.
they're just beautiful devices.
Yeah.
And all right, so enough of Doug wishing he had better hardware. But I am looking at a lot of people are using the Surface Studio to do. I think in whiteboards, and without a whiteboard surface, I just get twitchy. So anyway, all right,
Well,
so
I mean, so get a whiteboard and put a camera on it. I mean, that works too,
I
right?
can. I just like the digital collaboration with people where we're sketching together and we're doing that like that. That beautiful, seamless whiteboard app experience on that device is kind of my jam. So
It's nice.
I got spoiled by working out of a Microsoft Technology Center for all those years, right? And now like I'm like the have-nots versus the haves. It's okay. That was by choice. My only
Yeah.
other thing I'm going to really dive in on today is Cashman did a post about configuring forms and rules in lists. And
Aha.
there's an awesome thing from the list engineering team that does a demo over what you can do with list rules and form customizations on top of it. And it's pretty damn epic. Like you can really make this information light up. And so I think it's just awesome. You can write rules as like an if-then rule. So you can literally create, like, drop the automation menu. So like create a rule, and then when status is rolling out, send email to. Like that's the kind of stuff. Did you know this was in here?
Uh, I was aware. I don't know the details. Like I
Yeah,
haven't done the
I had
development.
not been paying careful enough attention to where this was evolving because I've been working on the other side of it, right? Um,
And I'll just say too, this is an example of we kind of went on a soapbox a little bit in the past of like, you know what, if you're a citizen developer or a power user, whatever, it might be worth your time to like learn Git, right? Just learn a little bit about Git and lifecycle management of software because Power Platform
just
plugs
a
in all
little,
that stuff. Uh, if you just learn a little bit of JSON, I mean,
little.
take a lunch
It's
and
easy.
learn JSON.
It is not
It's
hard.
so easy. I've taught
Yeah, and
my
it really
kids,
lights up.
right?
It lights up a whole lot of data interchange. It lights up a whole lot of formatting. It lights up like learn. That's a foundational skill,
Do not
right?
be afraid of
I'm
JSON.
kind of sad. We all used to, when I was, I know I'm aging myself, but we all had to learn programming, right? At certain languages and everything else. And understanding some of the underpinnings of these things makes you a better consumer of them
Did you
because you
learn
kind of
on
understand the
ENIAC or what did you learn
implications.
on? Uh,
I actually did learn with punch cards.
oh wow, I've never actually even seen a punch card in
Yeah,
person.
no, I learned to code on punch cards. So I might have been the
Really?
last of the
That's shocking.
generation on top of
Actually,
that.
you're not that much older than me.
Yeah, a few years. That was enough generation for doing punch card, and then that we went quickly
I'm
to the
shocked
number two
actually.
pencil programming cards where you put them through the machine and it read your code in,
Hmm.
so that you could do that. And then my first was there's one here. We got one. Someone gave me one to display. It was the oh dang, oh, it's the Timex Sinclair. And it had a cassette drive where you had to get the tone and volume right in order to load the data in for software. So that was when I started.
But honestly, I
All
think if
right.
you
Wow.
learn
I
how to
really.
do on punch cards, we're totally nerding out. If you learn how punch cards work, that makes programming so much because it makes you kind of
Yeah.
feel like what's going on at the metal, right? Which I think is important.
My brother was the lead developer for Oregon Trail, which I don't know that many people know that, right? So
Wait, you've never told me this. We have to talk.
I'm sorry. I just like it's a little family history,
That's
right?
your brother
Back when it
did
was
Oregon
Met.
Trail?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was he was the lead technical developer for Oregon Trail,
Your
and
brother
so
is
yeah,
responsible for my interest in computers.
he was the lead developer. So there was a program manager who set the screen UI and the layouts and all that kind of stuff.
I need to hear some
But yeah,
stories.
no, that
That's
that
amazing.
if you go look at the credits, you'll see Steve Splinter hanging on the credits for Oregon Trail original. The original company that produced it was Mech, which was the Minnesota Educational Computer Consortium. It was a state-funded startup, and so it came out of there was not enough educational software, and so the state actually launched an incubation, and that's where Oregon Trail came from.
So cool.
So I learned, from a programmer who did binary programming and, like wrote his own compilers and stuff. So I was all around a super nerd. I was not. Like, I mean, I'm a super nerd in a different kind of way, but I'm not like an algorithms dude like my big brother is. Anyway, so sidecar. So anyway, I couldn't go down those roads, but I did go down the road of JSON, and you can too. So there's
there we go. Tie it back together.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I thought you knew that little history of my universe. No. One thing that does get called out on this, when they go down to talking about like the list customization and everything else, they call out this this video and how-to series by April. I love when they do these things. When they have like a GitHub sample and a how-to video, and the GitHub example has nice follow-along stuff, right? And this is from a few months back, so shame on me. A few of them got updated, but this work is out there, and sometimes you just like find these gems, and I think this is one of them. So that's really it for me. Interesting list of all the Azure AD apps. Nice social progress on WorkLab, and I think that this lists thing and where we're going with all that and producing nice visualizations on it is the thing. All right. I'm going to cut over to you.
Did your brother all Curse of Monkey Island?
So yes.
I'm looking at his video game credits here. That is amazing. All right, I'm just like, I'm beside myself with excitement here. This impacted my childhood. You got to understand that.
No, I do. My brother was way more significant in a lot of people's education than right? And then he went to work for LucasArts Education. So he went out when George Lucas had his video game company and started and that's where the other stuff came in, was for LucasArts Education.
Island, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So he was one of the initial developers hired on at LucasArts Education. So anyway, this is not Doug's family coding history, but yes, sir. I completely derailed Todd, and he went off to look up my brother's development history. So yeah.
Michelle is sharing her excitement in the chat as well. Like I can't even focus. Like
no. So I got to see those games when they were like not things.
Yeah, that's
when back when you had the little the sprites, the visual sprite development, which is how you did video game interactions.
Yeah, sure.
But before there were sprites, they were just letters moving around the screen because the developer and the visual teams were separate. And so I got to play the games when they were nothing but characters on the screen that were interacting with each other.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Little brother hanging around your big brother's, because he's like 6 years older than me. So.
Yeah. Well, that's super neat.
All right, then. Let's talk other Microsoft stuff, shall we?
So this is I believe I've referred to this before, but I always like to kind of follow back up when things go GA. These are awesome. And I call this out specifically too because some geospatial features and Power Apps went GA. This address input, I get cranky when I do anything in an app or a web page and the address is not a autocomplete. It's so nice, and it's just today I think it's kind of table stakes. So you, as a citizen developer in Power Apps, can now have the same functionality, which is wonderful. And we've also, of course, added maps, right? So interactive maps for your mobile or your desktop apps. Yes, sir.
I want to make just one sidecar comment. I was working on an internal initiative where we had a UI designer like come in and help for a day on the app. Oh my goodness, does that make a difference in the universe of your application?
Those people are worth their salary.
Like Bujenes and all the rest of those people, like all props and shout out, like amazing. Like my cheesy app looks like 1,000% better.
And since we have, we're a little good on time, I'll just comment too. Like creative people, I'm so envious of creative people that create things. Like we're working on some redesign of the technology center in St. Louis. We're on a phone call with this team out of Redmond, this creative team, and we just gave them a few sentences of what we were looking for. They came back a week later, and I couldn't freaking believe what they showed me. I'm like, yes, this is it. You've nailed it beyond my wildest dreams. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do.
All right.
I'm like, all
no,
right.
It's awesome, isn't it? All right. Yeah. So anyway, don't think you shouldn't have those resources, or if you wanted to provide them out to your community as like a coaching resource, like you get 20 minutes per app with a UI coach, you'd have a whole different
UX people are worth their weight in gold.
Amazing.
And it drives me nuts too when people don't value that work. and kind of want it for free or for cheap. It's not.
Oh,
No, those people deserve their bill rates. 1
yep,
million percent.
100%. All right,
Yeah.
proceed. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, people come for the commentary, hopefully. So, uh, come for the news, stay for the commentary. All right. This one's not so much a new. Well, it's kind of is a new feature, I suppose. It's we the Power Apps, Power Automate team, sorry, have kind of retooled their help system, which I think is wonderful because I think you kind of always have to go do some search.
Did
Up and if you don't want to be a professional developer writing Node and C Sharp or whatever, there's so many opportunities here. I saw a tweet this week from a gentleman. I'll maybe put it in the show notes. That now works for Microsoft. That really gave his personal story about kind of how he was not on a great path. Kind of I think he called himself a troublemaker and didn't have a lot of opportunities after high school and kind of whatever. Ultimately decided to take his destiny into his own hands, learn some stuff, and he's like, Power Apps changed my life, like for sure. Like I found inspiration in this tool. I found a path to get in and learn this stuff, and I can totally see how that happens.
those are cool moments. I got to give a shout out to John Saville, our partner in crime from the MTC days. I was at a conference with him, and someone walked up to him and said, "Like, you got me out of poverty by learning Azure from your Pluralsight classes." And can I get your picture with you? I just, the humanity of those moments at times is astonishing. That's when we talk about, I don't know.
I obviously won't share who it is, but we work with someone who shared with me before they got their gig at Microsoft, they were living in a car, right?
Yeah.
And like it's amazing what is possible. And I don't know. So stuff. Anyway, we're really bouncing.
Yeah, we're all over the world today, aren't we? I don't know. It's been a couple of weeks. What do you want from us? All right. So
by the way, some folks in chat are kind of saying that the audio is spotty, but
I'm sorry.
Corey says it's better now. So hopefully,
I know.
Hopefully it is better.
I think it might be the mouse motion again. I'm holding still.
Okay.
Thank you.
So anyway, Power Automate documentation. All right. So Power Automate desktop update. Just some quick kind of bullet point hits here. Basically, this one's giving you a watch window, right? So if you're a pro dev using Visual Studio, you got a watch window so you can look at your variables. This is very cool. So this is actually a variable. They're calling it a variable value viewer, a triple V, a V cubed, I guess. And this is actually looking at a data table value where you can actually browse and see what the value of the variable is if it's an Excel data type of variable. So this is very cool. So you got to get there. Connection string builder, which is a nice to have, so you don't have to do that yourself. This one I was very happy with because I don't know, honestly, Power Automate Desktop, I think some of the investments have not yet been performance and just kind of fit and finish. So I think a lot of that fit and finish and perf stuff is kind of they're getting to it now, which is great. So I think if you've been using Power Automate Desktop to any extent, you'll be happy to see improved resource optimization. And this one made me sad for people who are doing this, but also happy because if you're doing any Internet Explorer automation, you no longer have to disable protected mode. So if you were trying to do that, you maybe even ran into some kind of issues with IT or whatever, having to disable protected mode. That's no longer a requirement. And my guess is there is quite a bit of, because a lot of times Power Automate Desktop is used to automate legacy stuff. So if you are requiring IE for any reason, I'm sorry, but you no longer have to disable protected mode to do that. So there you go. Doug has even no. He's like, I'm not even going to comment on IE. All right, so this one is super cool. It's my last one, and I would say again, speaking about going deep and kind of learning a platform for real and really getting in the weeds. One of the most important things when you're doing Power Query, Power Query generates a language called M whenever you're using the GUI, and Power Query has a very powerful capability called query folding. So if you are hitting a source that is queryable, right? An example of a non-queryable source would be a file on a hard drive. Can't query a CSV unless it's in compute. You have to read it all in and then look for stuff. But an example of a queryable source would be like a SQL Server, an Oracle database, Synapse, whatever, right? Things that you can submit a query to, do aggregations, do where clauses, those kinds of things. Query folding is the translation of Power Query things to SQL things that you can pass down and give to the underlying engine to do the work. So you don't have to bring back all the data and then do the work inside the Power Query engine. Much more efficient to do that. To date, there are ways to tell like what was folding and what wasn't, because if you do some optimization to get your query to fold, you may see like 100x performance, right, or something along those lines. It could mean a huge deal for efficiency and refresh time on your Power BI queries. But this is actually a really nice, frankly, it's like one of those things where I see it, I'm like, oh, where was this? Showing you each step and whether or not it's folding. And this can really help you in debugging to determine, how efficient is your query? Can you do something different? And I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Alex Powers, who is one of the most passionate Power BI people on the planet, who ran actually a 30-day challenge, which you can still go back and see on query folding. He would give you a challenge and say, make this thing fold. Here's my required results. And it really was a good exercise. I went through quite a bit of it to really get you to force to think about this. So if you're doing a lot of Power Query or Power BI against like SQL sources, you definitely want to learn about this and dig in, because again, if you may, whether or not you're having performance challenges today, at one point you're going to have that. So understanding what's happening underlying and how to get your queries to fold can mean a huge, difference of having your report refresh in an hour or maybe a minute, right? Seriously, could be that big of a difference. So check that out. This is just the initial kind of ad here. Here's the little decoder ring on what these little icons mean. And of course, this will be continually enhanced and updated based on feedback. This is just the first rev here. So give your feedback. And Sir Doug, that's all I have. And I think you said you needed to end a couple minutes early.
Yeah, I gotta roll. So, yeah. Well, all right. That was a fun week. I guess we originally thought we didn't have as much, but we had more than we thought we did, maybe.
We went on a couple
and some segues, which are fun.
Oregon Trail.
I was just thinking to myself that did I die from dysentery more or sooner than the average person out there? That's what I was trying to process while we were.
Nice. I love
it. And I died non-graphically far before anyone else did. I can guarantee you that.
And I'm having flashbacks to like 4th grade here for sure.
Yeah. Do you remember the Will Steiger Arctic thing too, where you could follow along when they did that thing to the Arctic, right? That was some of the original like real-time client server. They allowed student interaction for this Arctic expedition. Really? It was some of the first like live educational client server work over distributed networks. That team pioneered a lot of really interesting software, right? I mean, they really were foundational. So I remember going to the office. They had Nerf guns and floating helium blimps, and like it was one of those early development shops. And we're talking.
Well, your brother is an unsung hero of my childhood.
Yeah, we're talking early '80s, right? For the heyday of development and the rest of the stuff. I got into development through WordPerfect macros. I watched my brother code, but it never hooked me. But the idea of office automation did, and so I was early.
I know that's something you're very passionate about.
Yeah, that's why I like Citizen Developer. I'm a VBA hound, right? I can automate anything in Office through that. That's why I love Office scripts, and we're going with that because it makes that development interface approachable. That's what I love about all this. This makes it approachable for a person with just a little bit of curiosity, That's why I love like the machine learning training models we have now, where I built that model or just with no code to recognize whether someone was wearing a mask, and then you can publish that model and then consume it within a Power App. It's crazy.
I, I'm telling you, and I've said this a million times, the barrier between like you and becoming good at something like that is just the doing
Time and
and
commitment,
the believing. Yeah,
right?
it's just anybody can do this stuff. You just, and I really believe
And let
that.
us end.
I'm not saying it's easy.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no. It
saying,
can be simple but not easy. A lot of things are that way, right? All right. Well, let us end on a happy note of citizen development enablement and social sciences driving our collaboration environment. And we will see you next week. I got a little nerdier stuff I'm working on for next week. Some kind of really nitty gritty expansion of some of that office automation stuff I did. So I might be just like really carving open something a little more technically deep next week. So, and I might weave
let's
in
get
that
there.
JSON stuff to it to give you a real world example as to why you should pay attention to this. Because I
Cool.
say it, I kind of want to show this one. So I'm going to see if I'm ready next week. If not, I'll have it the week after. Everybody have a great week.
Nice. Peace, everyone. Be kind.